Yesterday, Brett Baer asked Kamala Harris if she still supports her policy of taxpayer-funded sex change surgeries for prison inmates. Here was her response. Stop 4.
I will follow the law, and it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries
you know what? You got to take responsible for what happened in your administration.
So basically, a whole bunch of nothing. Yesterday, we played the clip of Kamala Harris proudly saying that she championed that policy in the state of California. This is not just affecting prison systems, of course. We are seeing this in women's athletics as girls in sports are getting seriously injured by male opponents. And we have one of those female athletes with us here today. Her name is Payton McNabb. She endured lifelong injuries because of a male volleyball player on the opposing team. And now, at the age of 18, she is bravely speaking out about the Harris-Biden changes to Title IX and other policies that are endangering young female athletes. Her story is so important. It is another example of the harmful, destructive effects of toxic empathy. It's also another reason why we have to vote. Vote like your daughter's safety depends upon it, because it does. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Crowd Health. Go to joincrowdhealth.com/Allie. That's joincrowdhealth.com/Allie. Payton, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. First, we just want to hear about your story, why you're here. So take us back a couple of years to that day on the volleyball court.
Yeah, so I went into, this was like a conference game, and I had been playing against this guy since my freshman year. But then COVID happened, so we kind of like didn't really get to play all of our games, and it was just really weird. So I didn't really see him for a while.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of rumored. It wasn't for sure yet that this was a transgender player. We never thought, like, given from being from rural North Carolina, that this would be something that we would have to deal with ever. So I just kind of didn't want to believe it. I didn't know what to do because no one was really talking about it at the time. So I just went into the game trying to be positive. There was definitely, we had a young team, and those girls hadn't ever played against him before, and seeing the difference between the way he was hitting it and every other girl was hitting it were just not the same at all. So I was trying to go into it being positive and encouraging to everyone, even though none of us wanted to do that. And at this point, by this year, it was pretty obvious that it was, in fact, a guy. And
so you couldn't tell when you were previously playing this person before COVID, this wasn't something that was obvious?
Well, it was obvious that he was obviously a lot stronger than every other girl, but we just didn't even, like, I didn't know. We're not close with anyone from that school.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of just talked about through everybody.
And it wasn't really, even just a few years ago, this wasn't really something that was discussed.
Yeah.
You would just assume, okay, this is a really tall, strong
yeah.
player, because there are tall, strong, like female basketball and especially volleyball players, because height serves you so well in that sport that it probably wouldn't have been the first thing you thought that, okay, this is a guy.
Exactly. So we didn't really know, but we couldn't just not play because it was a conference game. So it was like the big deal if we didn't play or whatever. Because looking back now, we just wouldn't have played. My administration wouldn't have let us play. Like, everyone's against it. Full support to me. And I went into the game, and I'm not tall enough to block, so I never block. I always just do tips, and it works for every other team except for this one. So I was back there and I got hit right in the face. They guess it was about 70 miles per hour.
Wow.
And it knocked me unconscious.
He spiked the ball. Is that what happened? And it hit you right in the face.
Yeah.
And you've been playing volleyball for basically your whole life since you were little.
Yeah, for a long time. I've been a 3-sport athlete since I could walk. So sports are like a big thing in our family. And especially coming from a small school, you kind of have to play every sport.
Yeah.
For there to be programs. So a lot of us were just like multiple sport athletes. And I love sports. It's like brought so much into my life. But unfortunately, everything was taken away that day because of a boy. And it was just completely avoidable, which is the thing. So that's why it's so frustrating to me. But yeah, going back to that day, after I was struck in the head by the ball, Had you ever,
sorry to interject, had you ever gotten injured like that before?
No.
Never.
No.
Even, because I'm sure you've been hit before in volleyball.
Yeah.
And you've never been knocked unconscious.
No, never. And that's what is always the argument is, obviously, you're going to play sports and you're going to get hurt, which, like, obviously, but not to that extreme of an injury, unless you're playing against a boy, which is the whole argument. And yeah, I was unconscious for a few, like 30 seconds. And once everyone like swarmed me. Thank God my parents weren't there, because I seriously don't know like how they would have reacted. That was the only game they didn't come to. But the whole gym just went silent. No one knew what to do. There was a scream in the background. I was not all there. And once I woke up, the trainer for the other team, he asked me if I knew what just happened to me. And I was like, yeah, that boy just hit me in the face. And I don't think he was, because we were not allowed to talk about it, right? So he like didn't know what to say. So he just kind of rushed me off the court. And my adrenaline was like rushing.
Everyone knew at this point that this was a male.
Yeah. And it was really obvious at this point.
And how old were you?
I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
which also kind of explains why before COVID it wasn't obvious that this person was a male, because say 2019, that means you would have been 13 years
14.
old. Yeah, 13, 14 years old. And so, puberty's still happening. I'm sure he's changed a lot over the past few years as he has grown into a man.
Yeah. So it like wasn't, of course, since like boys don't go into puberty until later, it wasn't really obvious until our senior year.
Quick pause to tell you about our first sponsor, and that is Good Ranchers. All right, I've been partnering with Good Ranchers for a long time. We love them as people. We love the company. We love the products. That's all we eat in our house is Good Ranchers meat. We love their better than organic chicken, their craft beef. We use their ground beef probably the most, which is why we have created our own Allie box that has some of our favorite and most used products from Good Ranchers in it. So here's what you get when you get the Allie box. And this is just like perfect for families of 4 or 5 like we have. It is so versatile. You get so much out of it. So just make your life easier and go ahead and order the Allie box. You get 16 4.5-ounce plain chicken breasts, 2 1-pound Angus ground beef packs, 8 6-ounce American Wagyu plus Angus beef patties, and 2 18-ounce bone-in ribeyes, and a limited edition. When you go to goodranchers.com/Allie, you can see some of my favorite recipes there. This is enough for about 37 meals. So that gets you through an entire month. You're going to save a lot of money, save a lot of headaches from grocery shopping and meal planning if you just go ahead and get my box from goodranchers.com/Allie. Get $25 off any box when you use my code Allie. goodranchers.com/Allie. Okay, so you are knocked unconscious immediately, right? And actually, before we talk about what happened after this, I just want people to see the video. Is that okay? Is that okay for us to play this video? Okay, let's play set 1. Wow. So that's close, too. As hard as he possibly could.
Yeah.
So you immediately go unconscious. You said people are screaming. You're trying to come to. People are asking you questions. What happens after this?
The trainer did one little finger test on me and said I was all good. I could go back into play.
Wow. Did you?
No. Luckily, my coaches and athletic director were like, that's not happening. So I sat out the rest of the game. I remember calling my parents, and they just like,
your parents
so
weren't
upset. There. No.
Yeah.
And my mom was like immediately crying on the phone. My dad's so mad. And he's my principal of my high school.
Really? Wow.
And then he's also a paramedic. So he was working that night. My mom comes and meets me on the bus, takes me there. They're checking me out. I have to go to the doctor the next day, and she immediately refers me to a neurologist because they thought I had a brain bleed. And I definitely had concussion.
How did they know that, or why did they think that?
I was just completely off. I was repeating things over and over again. I was sleeping all the time. Didn't have any balance really. Was falling everywhere. My memory was just it was not good. It was a really hard time. And especially that was my first week of my senior year. So I was so excited to like finish out my last year, and this happened the first week. So it was definitely hard. I went to the neurologist. They explained everything to me, how I had a small brain bleed, a concussion, and permanent whiplash. And
permanent whiplash, what does that mean?
So I had to go, my neck is just like stiff now because of it, basically. And I have to go to the chiropractor a lot to get it like worked on so I don't like freeze up, I guess.
So you have permanent injuries from this?
Yes.
Because I'm guessing your head just kind of went back like that. I mean, you're lucky that your neck didn't, or your spinal cord didn't actually snap.
Yeah, and that's what the doctor said. And they were so confused on how I got this bad of an injury in a high school volleyball game.
Right.
So then my mom finally had to be like, well, it was a guy, and that's why. And they like were just so off after my mom said that. They kind of just stopped talking about it. Then they said I was like, they didn't want to see me anymore, basically.
The doctors at the hospital said that they didn't want to see you anymore because they found out the player was trans.
Well, they didn't word it that way, but all of a sudden I was no longer a patient at this neurologist place. So
in
they
North
didn't
Carolina?
Actually, in Georgia, because I live so far in North Carolina that we have to go like to the neighboring states and stuff for doctors, but yeah, they never said that specifically, so I can't really say that's why, but
there was a change after your mom said that. So what did y'all do?
I have been trying to find other doctors. There was finally one that was pretty helpful, and she helped as much as she could, but I've really just had to be like working on my mind and kind of just like getting through it, because there's really not a lot you can do with a head injury. You just kind of have to like wait it out, and it did take a lot of time. Luckily, I'm blessed to have healed a lot since then, but it's still not they don't know if I'll ever be the same as I was before.
Wow. And they confirmed it was a brain bleed?
Yeah, very small, but it was still there.
Yeah. And this player, is he still playing?
He had 2 full rides to Kennesaw and Kennesaw State, and one other, like George Mason, I think. And after I started speaking out, because I didn't start speaking out until a few months later when I turned 18. My parents said I can make that decision, do whatever I think is right, but I can't say anything until I'm turned 18. And then I needed time to heal anyway. So once I did, I spoke after I turned 18, I spoke immediately.
Yeah, how did you go public with this?
They were trying to pass the North Carolina Fairness Women's Sports Act, and they found me. I don't know how, because I hadn't said anything.
Yeah.
And this program called NC Values found me and brought me out to the General Assembly, North Carolina, and I spoke there like a few times that day. That's the first time I met Riley Gaines, and she's just been obviously a champion for women in this whole fight ever since the beginning.
Sweet. Yeah.
She's the best, and I seriously love her so much. But that's the first time I met her too, and she came to speak in hopes of passing this law as well. But ever since then, I didn't realize how big of a deal that was until the next day when it like exploded overnight. And then I started being a spokeswoman for Independent Women's Forum, and that's how that all started. But yeah, back to his scholarships. Ever since I became public, he got those taken away.
Really?
Because they said they didn't know.
Have you heard from him?
He reached out to me once, and this was around that time as well. And it was just on Instagram, and he just like kind of sent me like a nasty, like, it wasn't a lot though. It was just like a little sentence.
Just saying
like that I'm trying to think of what he said. I think something about how he's living rent free in my head, or like I'm obsessed or something like that.
So interesting male behavior there.
Yeah, it's pretty common.
He caused a brain bleed in a woman, and then accused the woman of complaining too much about her injuries. And obviously that's not, I'm not saying that's typical of males, but it is typical of male abusers and men who hate women.
Yeah.
Next sponsor is Jase Medical. So the devastation that we are seeing from these weather calamities, from these hurricanes, is just a reminder that we really need to be prepared, especially when it comes to our supply of medicine. When we're seeing floods, when it comes to injuries, there's so much risk of infection just because of the dirtiness of the floodwaters. And one of the most vital things that you can have on hand that can save your life and the life of your loved ones is antibiotics. But of course, when a flood happens or when a tornado happens, you're not able to get to the pharmacy. So you need to be able to have these on hand. That's what you can get from Jase Medical. Their Jase case not only comes with life-saving antibiotics, but you can also add on things like an EpiPen, ivermectin, Tamiflu. You can also get their Jase Daily case, which is a year-long supply of the prescription medications that you and your family rely on that you can get through their confidential telemedicine process. Go to jase.com, code Allie. That's jase.com, code Allie. After you were injured and people found out that this was indeed a male masquerading as a female who hurt you, what was the response from your community, your teammates, your school?
It's just complete support, overwhelming support, actually. Everyone has been super good to me about it. And I mean, there's like a few people, obviously, that aren't going to agree with you. There's been a few friends that I don't really have anymore because of this, and just things like that. But
They just stopped talking to you?
Yeah, because I don't agree, and like I get not agreeing with everything someone says. I don't agree with like stop being friends with people. Like these are like lifelong friends I no longer have because of this.
I'm sorry.
And it's just kind of like fed into everything else. But I don't regret any of it because it's not for me. Like this has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with my younger sister who it's her sophomore year of high school. She's also a 3-sport athlete, loves sports. And it's for her because she doesn't deserve, if that happened to her, I don't know what I would be doing. And it's for every other athlete that's coming up who deserves these just basic opportunities that I once had and that we've been fighting for. And now it's just like going in reverse.
Yeah. Wow. Most people in general, but especially most young people your age would have just chosen to stay silent. Because you just said the consequences that you've endured, losing lifelong friends, that's no small thing. Of course, someone could tell you, well, their opinion doesn't matter, but I know also from experience that hurts.
Yeah.
And that rejection hurts. And then I'm sure you've received your fair share of internet trolls and hate. And that's a cost that you counted and you decided that it's worth it. As you were kind of weighing this and deciding, okay, when I'm 18, am I going to really speak out? What was the thing that pushed you to say, okay, I've counted this cost. It's worth it. I'm going to speak up for this.
Yeah. I believe everything happens for a reason. And although it was horrible what happened to me, I think I knew there could be a lot of good that came out of it, and that it could help maybe prevent this from happening to at least one other girl. That would be good for me.
Yeah.
I think the Lord had a plan for me, and although I did try to run from it like as much as I could, because this is not in my comfort zone at all.
Yeah.
This is what I was meant to be doing for at least this part of my life, and I'm just gonna keep pushing until no other girls have to, take a loss, a conference loss, just because they're afraid or they don't want to get hurt in their volleyball game because there's a man on the other team, or they don't want to change in front of a man in the locker room. Like, these are just like, I can't believe those are real things, and that girls are actually having to face that. And it seems like it's a joke, but this is actually reality. So it's just truth, and that's what I'm fighting for. And hopefully we won't have to do it for much longer. I think people are starting to wake up. I hope so, at least.
I hope so too. And I'm just so proud of you. I know you don't need me to be proud of you, but courage is contagious, and you showing courage puts a lot of people much older than you to shame. And it should. The courage of someone like you who, as a teenager, it's natural to care about what people think and to want to maintain relationships and your reputation more than anything else, because you have your whole life ahead of you, that you've already sacrificed so much for truth is really, really inspiring. It's inspiring to me. And so just know that, like, I'm hearing your story and I'm thinking about just how God works, and how the story of Joseph being thrown into the pit by his brothers, he was sold into slavery after that, and what Satan meant to harm him actually concluded in both his good and the salvation of his family and of his people. And that's just what God does. He uses something that is harmful and evil, and he makes something really good and beautiful and impactful out of it. And I see that in your life. But the North Carolina General Assembly, this was April 2023, that Fairness in Women's Sports Bill, did it pass?
So it ended up getting vetoed by our Governor, Roy Cooper, which everyone was expecting, because he's just like
the worst.
Absolutely the worst. And everyone hates him because he's a coward and he sucks.
Yeah.
So everyone was expecting that. And we were just having to work extra hard to be able to override that. And there's just been absolutely wonderful people in North Carolina. Jennifer Balcom, Aaron Perret, like all those really, really strong representatives that worked so hard and tirelessly on overriding this bill. And I'm so thankful that I was a small part of that. And I think my story really helped a lot of people be able to vote on the override. And luckily it did become law in August of this year, or maybe last year. And I was so thankful. So
the legislature in North Carolina overrode the veto.
Yes.
And it did end up becoming law.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes. So thankful for that.
Yes. So. That is the result of raising a respectful ruckus, as we say on this show, raising a respectful ruckus for the things that matter. And praise God for that. All right, guys, just a reminder to thank you all for purchasing my book, Toxic Empathy. If you have not, go ahead and do that. You can click on the Amazon link in our description, or you can go to toxicempathy.com, see the other places that you can buy it. We've got an entire chapter on this lie that trans women are women. We talk about the data surrounding the differences between male and female performance in sports. And we talk about the laws that are in effect and can be in effect to advance the cause of truth and justice on behalf of vulnerable girls and women. So all the arguments that you need to support the reality of male and female and the goodness of laws protecting women are right here in this book, Toxic Empathy. This is for you to equip you in all of these very important, controversial conversations. So Toxic Empathy, check it out wherever books are sold. your school and other schools in the area, have they now adopted new policies? Is this still something that women's athletics is dealing with on the high school level there?
I don't think so, because now that it's not allowed, I really don't think that anyone can do it anymore, like in the whole state. I know for my county, at least, like after that happened to me, we were supposed to play them again, and my county immediately all got together and voted, the school board, and we weren't allowed, like none of the schools in the county were allowed to play them for the rest of the year since they had a man on their team. So that was a really good, I'm really glad that they stuck up for that at least. But yeah, I think that no one really has to worry about that in North Carolina anymore, which I'm so thankful for, and hopefully it stays that way and that people are respecting the law.
Yeah. Well, as you said, this does seem to be changing right now, not just in the state of North Carolina, but everywhere. I wanted to talk about this story with you. This was originally reported by Redux back in April. I saw Riley Gaines talking about it on X, and the headline is NCAA Division I volleyball teams boycott games against San Jose State over trans-identifying male player. So the University of Nevada, Reno became the 5th team to choose to forfeit their match against San Jose State over the trans-identifying male. His name is Braden Fleming, who is playing on the San Jose State women's team. Their statement says this: "We, the University of Nevada, Reno women's volleyball team, forfeit against San Jose State University and stand united in solidarity with the volleyball teams of Southern Utah University, Boise State University, the University of Wyoming, and Utah State University. We demand that our right to safety and fair competition on the court be upheld. We refuse to participate in any match that advances injustice against female athletes." But after they released their statement, so this is from the team, the university as a whole, the University of Nevada released its own statement saying, no, this is not our position. That's the team's position. This is not the university position. We're moving forward with the matches scheduled. Basically bullying women into playing against a man, possibly getting lifelong injuries like you did. They said the university intends to move forward with the matches scheduled. The players may choose not to participate in the match on the day of the contest. No players will be subject to any team disciplinary action for their decision not to participate in the match. So I'm hoping that they do boycott, because the game is on October 26th. I hope there's just no woman on that court from the University of Nevada that's playing. What do you think about this?
I think that is absolutely insane that they would choose to publicly release a statement, which they did not have to do that. Publicly release that statement basically against their own team. Yeah, cowards. And just saying, like, that wasn't me, like, that's just them. Like, that is so weak. Throwing women under the bus. And, like, it was such an intimidation thing, and just trying to make them feel bad for what they did and, you know, rethink it. And I really hope they stand strong and do not comply. Yes, me too. And just, you know, staying strong in these truths. And it takes a lot that they're even doing that in the first place. And I really don't think that they're going to continue this game. I think they're going to be strong. And they're going to say, no, like, enough is enough. We don't want to play against a man, and you cannot make us. And that's just, I think this boycott that's kind of turned into a trend right now is just the best thing that could be happening. People are starting to see it, and it's bringing more attention to it. And I just could not be more proud of them, because this is what we've been talking about for months, and actually probably a couple of years now. Yeah. And people are finally starting to choose to say no and not to comply. Yep. And I am so proud of what you're doing, what Riley Gaines is doing, what so many of these female athletes are doing, because y'all are all contributing to this. I mean, it is even
even if someone on that team, the University of Nevada, wouldn't say specifically that Payton McNabb is the one that convinced her to do this, it all works together. Like all of these efforts work together to make something like this happen. There's a teammate actually that is speaking out, the starting setter, the co-captain of the San Jose State women's volleyball team. She actually, so her name is Brooke Slusser. She recently joined the class action lawsuit against the NCAA and has spoken out about her teammate whose sex was hidden by the school for nearly 2 years. So she plays with this male. She has joined a class action lawsuit against the NCAA, basically trying to get them to protect women's sports and say, you've got to have female biology to play.
Yeah. I mean, what an incredible woman Brooke Slusser is, because I cannot even imagine what and all she's going through speaking out against a teammate. Like, she's literally having to be around them every single day still being able to speak and how wrong it is. I just applaud her so much because that takes so much courage and strength. But I'm just so happy that's happening. She's joining the Icons lawsuit along with all those other amazing, strong athletes. And hopefully this kind of just, I don't know what NCAA is doing, because we've been saying this and they've just been ignoring it. But hopefully this kind of makes them accept that women don't want this and they need to step up.
Yeah, she was Slusser, after she transferred from Alabama last fall to San Jose State, she was assigned a residence with this guy, with Fleming. I think he goes by Blair. And he actually specifically apparently requested her to reside with her when they went on team road trips. All right, that's scary. At no point during her recruitment nor during the 2023 season was Slusser informed that a male athlete was on the team. So she didn't know that. But of course, when she became aware that, okay, this is a dude, that's when she started speaking out about it, which you're right. It's one thing to speak out about someone that you don't interact with.
Yeah.
It's another thing to speak out against someone that you're seeing every day. And Slusser said this. She said, it was more so the school only supporting Blair, this guy, and they didn't really seem to want to check in on us. Basically, you shouldn't be the person to identify Blair's gender identity. That's something Blair needs to do and not you. That's not your story to tell. But we all have a story too, she said. This isn't just something that Blair's going through. This is something that I'm going through too. And my teammates, I have so many emotions and questions, and I don't know how to voice them. It's crazy how when it comes to men and women sharing spaces, sharing teams, all of a sudden the man becomes a victim just when he says he's a woman.
Yeah.
And then we're chopped liver.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
It's so crazy. And so much admiration for her speaking up. She said, I might only have 3 months left of ever playing volleyball. I already used my transfer, so I can't transfer again. It was either I walk away from volleyball forever, or I kind of swallow this hard pill, suck it up and play, do what I can for my team, and protect them any way I can. And it's just sad that women are basically being forced to subject themselves to possible lifelong injury or quit volleyball forever.
Yeah.
I mean, quit their sport forever, the thing that they have been working toward.
Yeah, it's just completely unfair. And these women have been working and devoting their whole life to their sport that they love, just for it all to be taken away and everyone care more about a man's false reality and feelings.
Yeah.
It's just we're all having to play this game like we don't all know the truth and just pretend game when it's so obvious, and it's just just crazy.
And in case people need to hear this explanation, when men play volleyball, whether or not they have long hair and wear lipstick sometimes, they play volleyball with a net that is 7.5 inches taller than a woman's volleyball net, because of course, on average, they're much taller than women. And even if they're not, even a short guy, say he's 5'5", he is still on average stronger than the 5'11" female. He just is. And there was this study out of actually Duke University, of course, North Carolina, that came out a few years ago that had to explain the scientific biological differences between male and female, especially when it came to track. And what they found was that Allison Felix, so an amazing track Olympian who obviously has world records, that her record was beaten thousands of times by 15-year-old boys throughout the United States. And they explained that is because of the existence of testicles. That's what they explained. It's literally just because they have testicles and they produce testosterone and they go through male puberty, which makes your muscles bigger. It obviously drops your voice. It grows your voice box. It gives you have a larger lung capacity. You have a bigger heart. You have bigger muscle mass. You have greater bone density, all of these things. No matter if you go on estrogen later, no matter if you change your name to Sally, once you've gone through male puberty, you have an insurmountable advantage that can cause injury to women. That is obviously why we separate male and female sports. And now we're pretending that someone's declaration just negates that reality.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So crazy.
Next sponsor is Every Life. Every Life has been doing amazing work, especially for the victims of Hurricane Milton and Hurricane Helene. They have been donating diapers, baby supplies to families in need who have lost everything. That's what you're supporting when you're supporting Every Life, America's only pro-life diaper company. You wish every diaper company would be pro-baby. Unfortunately, they're not. They're supporting Democrat causes, Democrats that believe in killing babies through all 9 months of gestation. If you don't want to put your dollars towards that, make sure you're purchasing your diapers from Every Life. It's where we get our diapers too. Plus, when you purchase a Buy for a Cause bundle, you are donating items to families in need. Go to everylife.com, use code Allie10 for a 10% discount. That's everylife.com. Code Allie10. The Biden administration, I just want to refresh people on this. The Biden administration, I should say the Harris-Biden administration, they've played a big role in all of this. On April 19th, the Harris-Biden admin announced it would redefine sex in Title IX rules to include gender identity, requiring that schools ignore biological distinctions between male and female in favor of an individual's sense of their gender. That is a quote. The rule took effect August 1st, and for the first time, the law stated that discrimination based on sex includes conduct related to a person's gender identity. So that means that these institutions that take this funding cannot tell a male who identifies as a girl, you have to go to the separate locker room. You have to go to the separate bathroom. You can't play on this team. Alliance Defending Freedom said this about the SCOTUS decision on Title IX. They said SCOTUS upheld two key rulings against the Harris-Biden admin's illegal rewrite of Title IX. The court denied the administration's request to partially reinstate its new Title IX rule, which would change the meaning of sex. And they represent clients in both cases. And so thankfully, the Supreme Court made a good decision there. And as you mentioned, the NCAA lawsuit via Icons, that's going on. Brooke Slusser is a part of this. Riley Gaines is a part of this. They are representing a broad coalition of female athletes across multiple sports and are suing the NCAA for their regulations that compromise the fairness of women's sports. So there's a lot going on this front. Are you feeling optimistic?
I am. I think we've got a lot of people that are working so hard every single day to be able to work on these lawsuits and get these stories out, and it just doesn't go unnoticed. And I think it's just changed. The world is changing right now on this issue, and I think I seriously am very optimistic, and I really hope that people are starting to open their eyes and just see how absolutely insane this is. The Title IX rewrite, that just changes so many things from what used to be such a small, document just explaining that, the basic stuff. And now it's turned into just I don't even know what the number is, just over 1,000 Word document or pages about Title IX.
Yeah.
That's how it changed.
Yep.
So we did Independent Women's Forum, partnered with a lot of different people, and we did a Take Back Title IX tour in June, and we basically went to 30 different states in 30 days. It was hectic, but we really got to just go out and be able to talk to people, and our experiences are not unique. Like, this is happening everywhere, but we're just the ones that are really just trying to get the story out there to bring awareness to it. And I think it really did a big part in that, because it got to tell people what's going on, and all these different athletes got to share their different stories, and I think that really helped too and play a big part in it, and just trying to get the message out there.
Yeah. And that's just another big reason why this election matters when we look at what the Harris-Biden administration has done when it comes to Title IX. But not just that, like their Health and Human Services under the Biden administration has pushed even regulations for or recommendations for the transition, so-called, of minors. Like, that's how radical they are. We talked yesterday about Kamala Harris bragging a few years ago that when she was Attorney General of California, that she pushed the policy that allowed male inmates who identified as a female to then be able to transition, get those surgeries on the taxpayer dime, and be transitioned into women's prisons. I mean, that's Kamala Harris. That is who is on the ballot. I'm sure you're waiting with bated breath to see how this election turns out.
Yeah, she drives me crazy.
Yeah, as she should.
Listening to everything she says, because it just it's just so mind-numbing.
Yeah.
Listening to those new laws and stuff that they're trying to push so hard, and these agendas that are just flooded everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's just so worldly, and I don't know. I've just always been told that if the world is against you, you must be doing something right. So
true.
I think it's really good versus evil, this election, in my eyes. And I don't know. Like, I just
when
don't
it comes
think
to policies, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, no person is perfect.
Yeah.
But when
no.
it comes to the policies, 100%.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just been my biggest thing.
Yeah.
To try to look at and try to, like, get the word out there. It's really important. And this will be the first election that I'm able to vote in.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to vote, but
Good
it's
for
just
you.
so important and people just don't realize, like, they don't think their vote really matters. It's just one vote, but it is so important.
Yeah. You're voting on behalf of girls. You're voting on behalf of their protection, fairness, their privacy, their rights. I mean, to me, that's a huge, as a mom of daughters, like that's a huge reason why I'm voting for Trump, even if I wish he, was more pro-life in certain ways. Like, there's, plenty of things, but at the end of the day, we've got two choices. And I see one set of policies that's going to protect my daughters, and one set of policies that is going to purposely put them in harm's way.
Yeah.
And I just can't betray them by voting for Kamala Harris or sitting this election out. You were affected by Hurricane Helene, correct? Was your community directly impacted?
Well, Murphy, which is where I'm from, luckily it just got missed, but right beside us on both sides got just extremely devastated. I go to school near Asheville, which is where it hit the worst, and we've been out of school until I think next week we go back. So we've been out for 3 weeks because people have it's just devastating. It's absolutely heartbreaking to see just how that has affected our mountains, and they've just no one's been helping really. At first it was just we were completely cut off from the world. We had no service and no internet, and it was just hard to get to places. I mean, people have lost their families, their houses, just everything. Yeah. And it's just been so horrible to see. My dad and the fire department and all those different things in our area have had to go out there and bring supplies and stuff like that, because there's just places that people haven't been able to get to, and they can only get from helicopter and stuff like that. So it's just been really hard to see. Luckily, our family is all safe and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's just really heartbreaking.
And from what I've heard, the governor, surprise, surprise, hasn't been that much of a help, including our federal government.
Yeah, no one's helped really. I mean, especially not Roy Cooper, but no one thought he was going to help anyway. But yeah, like my cousins, we have cousins in Arkansas who are bringing up like supplies, and people from home that were bringing up like hay and stuff for the animals. And they were trying to take their supplies and say that they can distribute them. Like FEMA was trying to take their stuff, and they had to like tell them no, like you can't take.
Yeah.
Like, you're not taking our stuff. Like, we know where it's supposed to go, but they're supposedly taking everyone's like donations
Supplies, yeah.
to put them where they think they are needed.
Yeah. Ronald Reagan said the scariest words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Our churches, Christians are doing amazing work there. Samaritan's Purse,
Yes,
also
absolutely.
Glenn Beck's organization, Mercury One. Those are the people that have really been on the ground donating helicopters, supplies. I mean, our Unashamed podcast is another podcast on the Blaze. Zach Dasher, who is a part of that, he lives in North Carolina, has been doing so much work for his fellow North Carolinians. It just shows me that even if our government sucks, like Americans are awesome.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah.
And Christians are awesome. Like the work that God is doing through just normal everyday citizens is really encouraging. And that also includes this whole gender battle too.
Yeah.
And it's a good encouragement when things seem really crazy. That
Yes.
God is doing good things through people's courage, and we get to be a part of that.
So true.
Last sponsor is My Patriot Supply. So again, when we see these disasters happening, it reminds us that we really need to be prepared. We want to make sure that we've got a food supply that we can rely on in case of an emergency. That's why you need a food supply kit from My Patriot Supply. Get their 3-month emergency food kit. Get one kit for every member of your family. These are 2,000 calorie a day meals. It's good in storage for up to 25 years. Hopefully you'll never need them, but you'd rather be safe than sorry. So go ahead and get your food supply kit from My Patriot Supply. Go to preparewithallie.com for a discount. That's preparewithallie.com. Is there any last thing that you want to tell people? How can they best support you?
We need strong leaders that are able, or that are willing and able to speak up for us and stand up for women and these like basic rights that we're having to fight so hard to have. So for example, on October 27th, we're having a lively show with Riley Gaines and Tulsi Gabbard, and more information of that is on IWV, like independentwomensvoice.com. But that's just one example where she's going to be able to talk to us about just women's rights and women's struggles and what we're having to fight for right now. I think when Trump went on the Faulkner show the other night, that was really good. He's starting to talk more about women and why women should want to vote for him and just stuff like that. But I think what you said earlier about being a mom, that's just so important because, like you said, you're not going to abandon your kids and you're going to vote for who is going to keep them safe. And I think that's the biggest thing to keep in mind, especially in this election. And I just watched the debate the other night with Ted Cruz and Colin Allred.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Wow.
You know what? If you have time, we're going to play a couple clips from that. I didn't think that we were going to be able to get to it, but since you brought it up, let's just have a quick reaction to these. Okay. So as you said, Colin Allred, he's Democrat running for Senate in Texas. We've got Ted Cruz, obviously the incumbent. Colin Allred, just like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and a lot of these politicians are trying to come across like, oh, we're just good old boys and good old girls. We're middle of the road. We're independent. independent. We don't like any of that crazy stuff. And if you pay attention to the Kamala Harris campaign, like they're not talking about trans stuff at all because they know it's actually really unpopular. And that's what Colin Allred is trying to do. But Ted Cruz, he really went in on this. Here's SOT 2.
Keep your eye on the ball. That's okay. Concentrate. You got this. Let's do it again.
Texas girls are tough, resilient, and strong. But now, they're facing an opponent they can't beat by digging deeper or trying harder. Colin Allred claims to stand for the women of Texas, but he voted against the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act of 2023. He stood with woke progressives and radical Democrats, not our daughters. What kind of man does that?
Truth and Courage PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Woo, that was so good. Donald Trump needs to do the same kind of ad.
Yeah.
And honestly, you need to be in one of those ads to show
That would
just
be awesome.
the consequence. Okay, this is actually the clip from the debate where Cruz goes after Allred for this position. Here's SOT 3.
4 times he has come out for men playing in women's sports, for boys playing in girls' sports. He is a co-sponsor, and he voted for a law called the Equality Act. The Equality Act mandated that boys be able to go in girls' bathrooms and their locker rooms and their changing rooms. He voted for it. That is his record. Number 2, there was a bill. It was a very simple bill. It was narrowly defined. It was protecting women and girls' sports. He voted no. The only issue on that bill was whether biological boys should compete against our daughters. That's not fair.
Yep. Called him out for that. I mean, as much as they want to act independent, look at the scoreboard. Look at your record.
Yeah. And as an NFL or former NFL linebacker, I think.
Yeah.
He doesn't know that there's a biological difference between a man and a woman.
Oh, he does. He knows
He's gonna
it.
stand up there as a dad, as a husband, and as a Christian and say that this is okay.
Yeah, I know. And he actually, I saw one of his commercials where he flat out said, I don't believe in letting boys and girls sports. He literally says that in one of his ads, but that's just that's because Democrats would say, well, those aren't boys.
Yeah.
They're girls.
Yeah.
Trans girls are girls. Blah.
That's exactly
whatever.
It is.
But Ted Cruz is exactly right. He was one of the original sponsors of the Equality Act. He voted against H.R. 734, the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. He co-sponsored a resolution to create a transgender Bill of Rights. And he joined the vast majority of Democrats in the House, signing a letter that urged Congress not to defund a measure providing experimental transgender medical interventions for military members and their families. So he not only wants to do that, but he wants our taxpayer dollars to fund it. Mm-hmm. He voted against H.R. 5, the Parental Bill of Rights, which would have simply required schools to notify parents about opening up sports to all genders, and the schools would have to get parental consent before allowing a child to change their gender markers. So Colin Allred is also against parental consent. He tweeted this in 2021. Everyone deserves to live their lives free from discrimination. The attacks on trans kids must be stopped. He also said Texas should be a place where our young people can be who they are. And he said that a Texas bill restricting male and female sports is a dark, shameful moment for Texas as the GOP in Texas is focused on attacking trans students. So the guy is radical. He is all in on the men and women's bathrooms agenda. Yeah,
he was just ridiculous. I mean, Ted Cruz, he came out very confident. He is just really good. He's really good. And I really liked watching him just destroy Colin in that debate because he just was so good. But he had common sense and truth on his side. So obviously, Colin Allred is not going to do well.
Yeah.
And I think it was just really obvious that who was who on that debate. He did not perform well, and I think
he was nervous.
He was very, but I would be too. I would not be able to.
No, well, now you're in the big leagues, buddy. Yeah, you've been in the Texas, you've been in the Texas legislature, and that's fine. But not only are you in the big leagues now because you're running for Senate, but you're also going against like one of the most successful and effective debaters. Yeah. Now, I will say, just because we're talking about this, and I have to say it, this is not Payton saying this at all. This is just me. I think Ted Cruz should have been stronger on the abortion question. The way that Republicans haw about this, like, it's a life and death issue. Come on. And then another thing I just will say about the Trump town hall that I don't agree with, and again, this is just me talking, when he was with Harris Faulkner and he said something about, oh, we won't allow sex change surgeries for kids without parental consent. Well, no. A parent doesn't get to consent to their child mutilating their body or stopping their puberty. A parent doesn't consent to child abuse. You go to jail for that. So no, that's a ridiculous opinion. That doesn't make any sense at all. We say no sex change surgeries, none of this mutilation, at least for children, at the very least for children. Yeah. So I want them to be stronger on that. But I think that the courage of people like you helps these politicians get stronger.
Well, thank you. That is what I'm trying.
Yes.
I'm trying.
Yes, and you're doing a great job. So everyone, go support Payton as much as you can. Can they follow you on social media? Do you have social media?
Okay. Yeah, I usually just, I'm on X, so that's where you can find me.
Okay, go support her and just pray for her too. Pray for her protection. Pray for her courage. Pray that God would just be with her and give her success and continue to bless her with the bravery that we all admire so much. Payton, thank you for taking the time to be here, and thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you so much.